Tonight, we were fortunate to have the Minister for Culture from Taiwan visiting us here in Seattle. It's very appropriate, and it gives me a warm feeling to see now how Taiwan's culture is finally taking its rightful place on the world stage. We see that here in America, the impacts of that with film festivals here. In fact, here in Seattle, having this year our second successful film festival led by the Taiwanese American Professionals Association. I'm super happy to see this kind of thing, especially after myself having lived in Taiwan and enjoyed this culture personally for so many years. One of the most important things we want to recognize, both here in America and in Taiwan, is that we are a culture made up of multiple cultures, a melting pot culture. In fact, one of the things that I use when I talk to other Americans is this fact that we're both melting pot cultures. Taiwan being one of a Asian melting pot culture, starting with the indigenous Austronesian people who have inhabited Taiwan for thousands of years, gives it a rich and deep foundation. And on top of that, we have Dutch, Spanish, many European cultures that came into Taiwan, then along with Hakka, Japanese, Han, Hokklo, who came and added to that rich tapestry that we now have as a multicultural and melting pot culture in Taiwan. Of course, now we've added Southeast Asian. And I can't help but notice too, American culture. Yes, thousands, hundreds of thousands of students who have come to the United States here to study and then brought something of American culture back to Taiwan. Truly, it's something that we can enjoy and share together, both Taiwanese and American. Now, the important thing about that, and the unique thing about that, is that instead of building a culture on a narrow ethnic view of things, we really are building a culture based on shared values. Both here in America, our shared values are freedom, democracy, human rights. But these values are now under intense attack by the Chinese Communist Party. They're using economic terrorism, media terrorism, and many other tools to repress these and try to shape both Asia and America and much of the world in their evil way of thinking. Really, as Secretary of State Pompeo just this last Wednesday at the Hudson Institute so aptly pointed out, that the CCP is truly hostile to the United States and our values, an enemy of every democracy. He called on us saying, we collectively, all of us, must confront these challenges from the People's Republic of China head on. He also lamented how over the years we've downgraded our relationship with Taiwan, our long-term and long-time friend Taiwan. That must be rectified. In fact, Taiwan matters very much, and this election coming up here in January matters very much. If a pro-China administration were to take hold of Taiwan, it would give Taiwan effective one country, two systems. I say effective because there's no peace treaty needed to be signed. All that needs to happen is for this pro-China president or head of Taiwan to simply continue the policies of the My Angel administration, the services agreement, and other things that would give CCP-backed companies full control of Taiwan's banking and services, effectively controlling all parts of Taiwan. That is not what we want to see. A worse follow-on to that would be to see in America at the end of 2020 our own pro-China candidate that China wants so badly to see. Yes, unfortunately, we are facing that here, the danger of that here in the United States as well, with one of our candidates openly saying that China is their friend, that the CCP, the leaders there, the ones who are putting people in concentration camps in Xinjiang, that are causing such human rights repression, that are causing the problems in Hong Kong. He calls them friends? Maybe because it's his son that's making huge loads of money, involved with firms such as Hikvision, directly involved with what's happening there in Xinjiang and East Turkestan. If that were to happen, it would be an economic military, strategic, and diplomatic disaster. Now, first, military. If we are soft on Taiwan's defense, you know what happens? Beijing simply turns their eyes on Japan or the Philippines. They claim the Senkakus all the way to Okinawa. What would stop them then from attacking? What would stop them from attacking islands that they covet that belong to the Philippines? But here's the difference. That would actually draw us into a war because we have security guarantees with both Japan and the Philippines. So being soft on Taiwan's defense almost guarantees that we will get into a war with China that we don't want. Strategic. Economically, 20,000 Washington state jobs rely on exports to China. In fact, Taiwan is the 7th largest agricultural export market, 4th if you just consider high value produce such as cherries and organic produce. In Taiwan, we have AI research, artificial intelligence research centers that have been set up by Amazon and Microsoft. These will be taken and controlled by China. As Clay Lin researched recently, over 70% of the semiconductors, those chips that are important for every device that we rely on now, are produced in Taiwan. If China were to get their hands on those factories and be able to not only control the flow of chips to us, but in fact put in spyware and mess with the viability of those chips, it would put us in a very weak position. Third, diplomatic. With less pressure and not having to deal with the Taiwan question anymore for those in the CCP, they would turn their attention to the periphery countries that they have territorial disputes with. India, Nepal, Bhutan, Mongolia, every single one of them. And then outside from that, we have the South China Sea. And outside from that, all of Asia, who they want to make into citizen states that bow down to China's every whim and wish. It would weaken the United States, weaken democracy. We don't want a pro-China candidate in Taiwan. We don't want a pro-China candidate here. In fact, we shouldn't even say pro-China, we should say pro-CCP. Because to be pro-China really means you are for the CCP. If you were really for China, you would want to see that regime taken away. But let's talk about what that means as a pro-CCP candidate. That means you support all the things they support. Basically, that you're against all these things. You are anti-fairness, you are anti-democracy, anti-human rights, anti-rule of law, anti-liberty, anti-freedom of speech, and anti-religion. In fact, that sounds very anti-American, and I would dare say very anti-Taiwanese to me. Instead, what we need instead is a pro-Taiwan, pro-fairness, pro-democracy, pro-human rights, pro-rule of law, pro-liberty, pro-freedom of speech, pro-freedom of religion party to remain in power in Taiwan. Let's work together to ensure there will be no China's Taiwan province governor of Han in the future.